Hi, I'm Mark at leagueathletics.com. Thanks for watching session number 2 of the Online Registration 101 course. In the first session, we went through the end user's perspective or the parent's perspective of the registration process when they would register their child for a program on your website. In this session, we're going to go through the back end of leagueathletics.com and show you how to actually set up a registration program. So to do that, you're first going to want to go to your website that you've created with League Athletics and log in the top right hand corner with your username and administrative password. And once you're logged in, you're going to notice some of these editing icons on your page, and then you'll also have the administer link in the top right corner. So to get to the administration page, we're just going to click that administer link, and this is going to take us to the administrative features page in our website. Now when we get here, we want to focus on the members box in the top right corner, and we're going to select registration system, obviously, from the fourth bullet in this box. And this is going to take us into the registration program page where we can start setting up multiple registration programs. Now when you get to this page, you're going to see a list of all of your registration programs here. Now you probably have a new site, so you're going to see one here or none here. Perhaps an example program. And that's just a program, a dummy program that we've created so that you can go ahead and edit that or play around with that to test some things out. Or you can even copy that and edit that program in order to release a new registration. Down below here you're going to see a few options. The first is going to be add. That's self-explanatory. That's where we're going to add a new registration program to the system. Clone is going to allow us to copy an existing program, so we'd be able to create an exact copy of one we've already created and then edit some of the information within that program, and that will save us the trouble of having to go through the process of creating new registrations over and over. The edit option will allow you to go into a registration program and edit any of the criteria, like the open date or the close date or any costs you might set up for the program. The delete button will allow you to delete this registration program and all of the registrations that may be associated with it. The form button is something we'll get into a little bit later, but this will allow you to add custom questions to the registration form. So in session 1, we showed you the participant information form that somebody's going to fill out when they first register, and that's going to collect their name and address and phone number and email and all the vitals. But then you may want to collect some additional information like their jersey size or a preferred number, or maybe they have to agree to a waiver, and that can be all that can be added as custom questions in the form area. Next is the list button. Once you have registrations that are live and people start registering, you can highlight a registration from the box above and click the list button, and this would create an on-screen report showing you who's registered and allow you to check their information. It's also where you'll enter check and cash payments if you decide to accept those. And then you also have an assign button. So once you start collecting registrations, you can drag and drop people onto teams after you've created teams in your site. And then you're also going to have a download button, and that's where you can extract the data into an Excel document from your website, and also where you're going to create custom reports. Basically, you can pick and choose which columns you want to include in the report, save that report type, and download that later if you'd like. So those are the main functions on this screen. So right now we're going to go ahead and add a new program and start from scratch here. And this is going to give us a blank registration form where we can enter in the criteria for our registration program. So the first thing we want to do is title this registration, and this is going to be something that's specific to the registration, so maybe age or grade or gender based. So I'm going to title this 6th grade boys registration. The position field would allow us to list these different registration programs if we have multiple on the registration page. So putting this one as position 1 would list it first on the page, position 2 would be after position 1, and so forth and so on. And then once we move down into the middle of the page, you're going to see a number of tabs at the top here, description, qualifications, costs. We're just going to move through them from left to right here, filling out all the information on each page. So the first option is the registration type. If we're allowing parents or members to come to the registration system and just register as an individual for a program, we're going to leave it as individual member registration. Then we're also going to include an open date, and this is the date that somebody would be able to register on your website for this program. So I'll leave it as today, 8/7. The next option is a late date. So you could optionally have a late date inserted into this registration, and then after that date, or on or after that date, a late fee would be charged to them, and that's optional, of course, but I'm going to go ahead and add it here for demonstration purposes. So we'll say a month from today. And then we'll need to add a close date. And the close date is optional, but generally you want to set a close date here, and this is when the registration program will not be available to people on your website anymore. It'll still be available to you as an administrator, of course, but people coming to your website would not be able to find this registration program and register. And this is going to be after the late date. So I'm going to do this a month later as well. So essentially they have 2 months to register. After the first month, they're going to incur a late fee that we'll add in a second here. Now, as a administrator setting this up and wanting to test this, I'm going to put this into test mode. That means that nobody can see this on your website unless they're logged in as an administrator, and that of course will be you logging into the website. Then there's an invite-only option. So perhaps this was not in test mode and this was active on your website. We could put this in invite-only mode, and that would make the registration active to the public. However, it wouldn't be shown on your website. So you could then enter email addresses of people you'd like to invite down below here. And then email these individuals this link down below. And that would give them a direct link to this registration program that nobody else would be able to see. But because they got the email, they'd be able to click on the link and go through the registration process. Now, if you have email addresses here, only people with those email addresses would be able to register in this program. So if I received it at my email address and tried to forward it to my friend, then they wouldn't be able to register because their email address wouldn't be listed here. However, if I went ahead and removed all of the email addresses, anybody that had this link would then be able to register in that program. But generally you won't have an invite-only program. It's a nice little option there though. But I'm going to still leave this in test mode so that we can test it as an administrator. And when we're ready to release it, we'll uncheck that option. Down below here we can choose to include or require that a middle initial be entered when somebody's registering. And then we can also enter our email address here. And when somebody registers for this program, the email address that's entered in this field will receive a copy of that notification. So this should be something like registrar. This box allows you to perform background checks for coaches. So if you set up a coach's registration program, you could enter a background checking ID here and they would be forced into a background checking process. And that'll be discussed in later courses. So notice right now I'm not going to click the submit button at the bottom. I'm actually going to go up here and click on description and move through the registration from left to right. So the description area was shown in session 1. That's that white box that tells the person what they're registering for. So I'm going to enter a simple description here. And once I've entered in the information, I could just go to the qualifications tab. Probably qualifications tab is going to be the most important here. At the top we have prerequisite programs. Now this would allow you to require somebody to be registered in another program before registering in this one. So it may be useful if you have a registration program where you require parents to go through a volunteer process, or let's say they had to be involved in a clinic before they can register for the actual season. So you could select those options below here, and that would not allow them to register unless they were registered in those previous programs. However, I'm going to leave this as none because I'm going to allow anybody who's ever registered or not registered to come in and register for this program. Then the open to option. So it says new and existing members here, and that's relative to your database. So new members would mean people who are not existing in your database, and then existing members would be obviously those people that are already in your database. And you can choose either one of those or both of them. Gender, self-explanatory. Is this open to males, females, or both? And then down below here we can specify the age range and the grade range that people need to fall within in order to register here. And just a quick tip here, if you leave this information blank, so for example if we had no age set and no grade range set, the system assumes that this is an adult registration program and it's not going to ask for parent information during the process. So if this is a minor registration program or a youth registration program, you want to make sure that you at least have the age range set or the grade range set, or you can do both even. Now when we're entering the age range, we're going to enter the oldest or the youngest age first and then the oldest. And we can do that using this nice little league age calculator. So for example, if we're doing 6th grade and we say they're between the age of 12 and 14 as of the end of this year, and click submit, it'll automatically go ahead and fill in these dates for us so we don't have to do the painful math there. And then if we're entering grades, of course this is the 6th grade boys registration, so I'm going to make sure that they're in 6th grade by going 6 to 6, and you could also do a range, 5 to 6 or 6 to 7, but I'm just going to make sure that they're in the 6th grade and for the school year of 2012 to 2013. Below that, we can actually limit this registration to people within a certain zip code or a certain location. So we could enter a zip code here or multiple zip codes separated by commas. Like so. Or we don't have to enter anything there. We can leave it blank. This piece is important as well, the limit to or waitlist after option. So if we had only a certain number of positions available in this registration program, we could enter that here. Perhaps only 20 people could register. Once that limit was reached, this registration program would close and nobody else would be able to register for it. Or we could set a wait list. So essentially the 21st person that registers now would be able to register, but they would be placed on a wait list. And then in the future you could go back. If somebody dropped out, you could remove their registration and add somebody from the wait list into the registered pool. If you don't want to have a wait list or a limit, just leave that option blank there. Now onto the costs tab. So we're going to set our base cost for this registration, and this is the base amount that somebody would pay for this program. I'm going to set it at 100, and I'm also going to add a late fee, and the late fee is going to coordinate with the late date that we added on the first tab, so 9/7. On 9/7, somebody would be charged $10 perhaps. So the initial cost from 8/7 to 9/6 would be $100. If somebody registered from 9/7 to 10/7, the late fee would be $10 and they would be charged $110 total. Now we can also do multi-child discounts here. So if we have a second, third, fourth child, we can just add the amounts that are going to be discounted from their registration here. Maybe the second child receives a $10 discount, third receives 30, and the fourth receives 40 perhaps. Now as they register, they'll see those discounts populate. Down below here, we can choose which programs we want to include in that discount schedule just by selecting some additional options here. However, if we wanted to apply across the entire registration program, we would just leave all programs, all open programs selected. We can also include a maximum per family. That means once that max has been reached, that family won't be charged any additional money no matter what they select or how many people they register. Also, we can allow those waitlisted members, as we had chosen on this page. If we were to create a waitlist, we could allow the people who are waitlisted to pay at the time of registration. Now, you may want to do that. However, I would caution you against it. people are waitlisted and do decide to play or do decide to pay, but they don't have a position once the registration closes, you're going to have to go back and refund them their money. So you may just want to leave that unchecked for now. Next, onto the payment tab. So here you can specify how you want to be paid for this registration. You'll have a couple options. First is the full amount, so which means when they get to the end of the registration, they'll have to pay the full amount of money that they owe. And that was the $100 or the $110 or any discount based on whatever player they might be in the family. Or we can set up a schedule. A schedule would allow us to set up installments that they would need to pay over time. And just a point of note here, if you have a PayPal account, PayPal does not support scheduled payments. But if you have a merchant account, you're in luck and you can set up those scheduled payments. And you can do that by simply clicking the link here. And this is going to give us a pop-up window where we can define a schedule. So the first one might be deposit. And the due date, I'll leave that blank because I want them to pay right when they register. And then the amount is going to be $50 perhaps. And I'll click submit to save that. So now it's added our deposit with no due date, which means that as soon as they register, that will be due for $50. And then I can add a second one, maybe call this final installment. The due date we'll say is going to be at the end of that registration. So I believe we had said that was October 7th. We'll select October 7th. And then the amount, notice I'm going to leave this blank. So that what that's going to do when I submit this is it's going to say, okay, the final installment is due on 10/7, and it's going to be the balance of whatever they owe. So the system will automatically calculate what they do owe. And another point of note, since we are requiring them to have this due on the 7th of October, 7 days prior to that date, we'll actually automatically send out a notice letting them know that a payment is due with a link, and they can log into their family account and make payment for that. Down below here, in the check payment box, you can enter your information for your organization. This would allow people to pay you by check or cash. You don't have to include this if you don't want to. Just leave it blank, but I'm going to include this here. Okay, and then down at the bottom we'll have our merchant accounts once we've connected them to the website, and we can select which merchant account we'd like somebody to pay through. If I go ahead and just select that one, that means that when somebody comes to the checkout page to pay, the money would be processed through that merchant account that we have set up with our website. Okay, and then on to the confirmation, which is kind of an inverse of the description. This is the message they'll see at the end of the registration program, and also a note that they would receive in an email once they've completed the registration. And then finally, the Advanced tab. So the Advanced tab is going to allow us to do a couple things. We can set up categories. So let's say you had 5 boys programs and 5 girls programs. We could set up categories of boys and girls here and then assign this registration to one of those categories. When somebody comes to your registration page, they would see a drop down with those 2 options. Based on their selection, we would only show the registrations that fall into that category. This section allows you to show information to the end user before they register. In session 1 you saw the online registration page, and you'll see it here at the end of this session. But this will display to them the things that are unique to this registration program. Essentially what it costs, if there are any type of restrictions, what grades can be registered, what gender can be registered here, all of the information pertinent to the registration program. And then down at the bottom, this is something you'll probably want to use. You can automatically have registrations that do not pay automatically removed, or you can have them added to a wait list. And you can do that right after they're done registration or on a certain date if you'd like. So for example, I may want to delete everyone who does not pay right after their web session ends. So that means if they come through my website, they register online, and then they leave my website and close it out, their registration is going to be removed, and they're going to be notified via email that something that says to the effect of, sorry, you've been removed because you didn't pay, and then they can go back to the website and register again if they didn't pay. Okay, so now that we've got all of that set up, we'll click Submit to Save. Now when we click Submit to Save after adding a new program, it's going to bring us to the supplemental page, and this was that form button that I discussed initially, and we'll come back to this in session 3. Essentially, this is where we're going to add those custom questions to our registration program. For now, I'm just going to click Done to get this program launched. Okay, so here's my 6th grade boys program that we had set up. It's open on 8/7, closes on 10/7, and now we can look for that on our website, on our Register Online button, and you should have that somewhere in the left-hand navigation of your site. And so here it is at the top of my site here. So I've got 6th grade boys registration. Here's that description that we entered, and then here are all those things that we included in the tabs that we're going to show to the end user before they start the process. The cost is going to be $100. It's open today. The late fee starts after September 7th, and then it's going to close on October 7th. And then it's also going to be open to boys and girls between these ages in grade 6 for 2012-2013. And we currently have no registrations. Okay, so let's go through it and see how we did. So I'll click Begin, I'll click Continue, and then I'm going to sign into my family account here. If I don't have one, I can just enter my email address and it will email me a temporary password. Okay, so I get to my family account here. Looks like I have one person that's eligible for the program, so I'm going to click on Eligible and register them. And this takes me to my participant information screen. I've got my first name. Remember, we required that the middle initial be entered, so we'll include that here. And just make sure we've got all of the correct information filled out. And we'll make sure they're eligible, and we'll click Submit. Okay, great. So finally it takes us to the registration review page. It shows us a total cost for the program, which includes a base cost of $40. Because I have 6 or more demo children registered, it's giving me a discount of that $40 that we employed. And now we have a deposit of $50 is being required, and then a final installment of $10 because it automatically calculated the amount due for my, my family. So at this point I can go ahead and click Pay Now to check out with a credit card, go back and register another player perhaps, or send a check or cash to this address because we had entered that as an option. Now one more thing before we go is I want to show you how to delete that registration so you can continue to test over and over again. So we'll go back to that administration page in the top right corner, and then we'll go to the registration system page. And you can see in the 6th grade boys registration we have one registration, and I will click the list button to show that on-screen report. Okay, so this is showing us that that one person registered, and here's some of their vitals. They have a cost of $60 and they have paid $0. So at this point I want to delete their registration because I want to test it again. So I'll go ahead and just click this delete button, click OK, and it will delete that registration. I can go back as an administrator, log back in through that registration page, and test that out once again. I'm Mark at League Athletics. Thanks for watching Session 2 of Online Registration 101.